Morning, everyone. The post-apocalyptical fiction section has been moved to current affairs. Please note. Yesterday I was talking about how I cited a Danish study that was not the correct study to cite. It was a Danish study, but it wasn't the one I was thinking of that said outright that face masks don't work. And by don't work, I mean don't make a statistical difference between non-face mask wearers with regards to being infected by a virus. And that's what the study says. Yesterday, I was saying that regardless of how much it works, and if it worked 10% or 12% or 17%, at what point is it worth giving up your culture, right? It's always a balancing act. Even when you're deciding about your own health, it's a balancing act. Should I get this procedure done, or is that going to impact my life in a negative way? Is it worth it for the rest of my life? Blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's a no-brainer. Sometimes it's like, absolutely, are you going to have that surgery? Or other times it's going to say, oh, yeah, that's risky. Maybe it's not worth the risk. And you are the only person who gets to make that, unless, of course, you live in Canada, in which case they're mandating masks in more and more confident ways, in more and more lengthy ways. Here's Edmonton extending their mask bylaw until December 2021. Because, the virus is going to be around forever. It's never going away. And if you dare to question it, you're racist, an anti-masker. It's amazing how they've coined these phrases. And the people who back up the coining of these phrases, the anti-maskers and all that other stuff, it's not done by accident. Just making sure you know that. Here's an interesting little chart. This is from Connecticut, and it's got when inside face masks were mandated in April, and then you saw the immediate spike, and then the drawdown, and then the summertime, and then outside masks were mandated in August in Connecticut, and then on September 25th, fines for not wearing masks. It doesn't explain inside or outside. I guess it's just fine for not wearing masks, period. And then you see the cases skyrocket. So is this following science? Is this the best we could possibly do? And the thing is, guys, I think that we're rounding the bend into when normal people are starting to question this and say, I'm not following this. I'm not going along with this. There are a lot of people wearing masks out there, but there are consequences to not wearing a mask. You're signaling that you're not on board with this. You're signaling that you're going to be different, and people don't like to be different. So yes, there's a lot of compliance out there, but I consider what people are like, because people are like that. Here's an interesting thing to note, and I'm going to note some things as well, because that's what I do. I've got a lot of tabs today, guys, so I may get through this fast, but sometimes when I think it's going to be quick, I'm wrong. And sometimes when I think I'm going to be long, I'm short, so who knows? Anyway, Ontario has 150 people in the ICU with COVID-19. Ontario has 400 hospitals. So Ontario has, on average, 0.375 of a person per hospital in an ICU with COVID. That doesn't mean they're there because of COVID, just that they have COVID in their system. Even if COVID was a real pandemic, Ontario's budget for healthcare is $63 billion. That's right, billion. And Ford Nation and Minister Elliott, don't know how to redirect funds to handle 150 ICU cases. I made this point yesterday. I was like, are you kidding me? How can we have 1,400 critical care beds with vent capacity on April 16th, but on November 19th have a hard 150 capacity in 150 intensive care, only 87 on a vent? How in the world can this be close to true? Here's the CTV article that says the province... Sorry, this is the Ontario news.ontario.ca article. This is put out by Doug Ford, I believe, saying that the province has added 1,035 acute care beds and 1,492 critical care beds, and taken steps to ensure hospital have all the staff available to care for a surge in patients. So we've got 1,500 cases, or 1,500 capacity right off the hop in April. That's April 16th. And then in November, we're struggling at 150. What the heck is going on with a $63 billion system? Cha-ching, where's the money going? Who's very, very expensive front office or back office is this? It seems like an unending amount of money. $63 billion? And we're just taking care of Ontario? How many people live in Ontario? Isn't it in the millions? It's not in the billions. We don't have billions of people living in Ontario. How much money is that? How much money is that per capita? Can somebody do the population and divide that by $63 billion? Please put that in the comments. Okay, Ontario has 150 people. We read that. This is the stats from Canada. I've mapped this out too. This is, from what I've seen, this is true. They've just updated to the September numbers. I didn't have the September. I had till mid-August. So that's what I mapped. I'm going to get this and update my graphs. I have to update my graphs. I know. I'm sorry. But January to September 2018 deaths, that's 186,825. January to September 2019 deaths, 185,200. January to September 2020 deaths, 186,690. So more than last year, but less than 2 years ago. Is this cause to completely lock down the province? Here's Doug Ford locking down the province. Across the province in the last week, hospitalizations have increased by 22% and intensive care unit admissions grew by nearly 50%. We can't give you the numbers because if we gave you the numbers, you'd be really mad about how we're spending that $63 billion you've given us. Back to this. We cannot risk overwhelming our hospitals. As a result, our government is taking action to stop the spread of COVID-19 and keep Ontarians safe. You're lying. You're lying. Here's an article, CBC from 2018. Quote, from 2018. Quote, due to the high rates of influenza illness in the community this season, we have experienced a constant demand for acute care beds and maintained an average of 116% occupancy since January. Did we go into lockdown then? No. Nope, not even close. And the occupancy capacity percentage, I think, is put in here at like 91% or something like that. We're almost at capacity. You'll never believe it. We might get to 100%. Here's the lockdown, and that didn't actually talk about Doug Ford's lockdown, I don't think, but Peel and Toronto and a bunch of other areas are now in gray lockdown, and a bunch of other areas are in red control. Red control, right? I mean, they're not signaling what they want at all. Here's Ryan. He says a department store can be open, but small retailers can't during the busiest time of year. We're definitely not all in this together. So if you're a department store, okay, exceptions where in-person shopping is permitted. Retail permitted to be open for curbside pickup only or delivery only. Retail shopping not permitted. Exceptions where in-person shopping is permitted. Supermarkets, grocery stores, and convenience stores, hardware stores, discount and department store type retailers, beer and wine and liquor stores, pharmacies, and safety supply stores. 50% capacity limit in retail outlets permitted to open for in-person shopping. Motor vehicle sales permitted to be open for in-person shopping by appointment only, and other safety restrictions. So, you know, if you're a small mom and pop retailer, get on the curb. And we hope that you use that money to pay your landlord because, you know, we don't like welchers. Here is Ari Goldkind, and he says, your local barber, neighborhood restaurant, gym that keeps you healthy, and local store destroyed while international flights pour into Pearson Airport literally by the minute. Yes. Here's one from Ponte Delgada, from Montego Bay, from Shanghai. You know, everybody's just landing in Ontario, right? Everybody's welcome. And once you get here, stay in your house and don't leave. Don't you dare leave, and don't question it. Here's a reminder clip that they ran a documentary that featured Theresa Tam. She speaks of putting armbands on people for tracking purposes and arresting anyone that is non-compliant and putting them in mandatory quarantine during a pandemic. We thought this was fitting to share, given her admiration of what the government of Manitoba has recently done. What do you think? I think it's terrifying what's going on. Here's an interesting thing. I followed Matt Strauss. He's a doctor, and he's a British doctor. So they had a debate in the Toronto Star, and the debate is here. I'm not going to go through it right now because I just don't have time. It's past the scope of this. But please go do read it. He argues on the side that lockdowns don't work. And he says, I'm surprised to find that the comment section of the Toronto Star largely anti-lockdown. I really think the tide of public sentiment must be turning. Yeah, I think people are getting angry to see their businesses completely destroyed for no gains at all. And $63 billion spent so 150 people can be in the ICU. What's the average usual of people in the ICU this time during flu season? Like, really, I think that we're in a situation where our leaders have some explaining to do. And has anyone asked about Dominion? Has anybody called Dominion to say, we've noticed some indiscrepancies on this news thing out of the United States, and we know that some are calling it fake news, but hey, we've got some questions. Has anybody called them? Guelph? Ontario PCs? LPC Party? CPC? All of these have been influenced by Dominion. All of their major campaigns or elections have been run by Dominion. You'd think they'd have questions. Sidney Powell made some blockbuster allegations saying that people were buying and selling offices. Any calls made? Anybody? No? Yeah, I think people are sick and tired of this bullshit. Doug Ford, like Dominion was part of your election too, man. So, maybe we should call a snap election just to make sure, and we'll just do it the old-fashioned way, paper ballots, right? No Dominion counting system. And then, you'll win easily because it was straight up the first time, right? No problem. Anyway, Doug Ford's announcing more lockdowns effective Monday, November 23rd. Chatham-Kent Public Health, Eastern Ontario Health Unit, Grey Bruce Health Unit, Kingston Frontenac, and Lennox and Addington Public Health, Peterborough Public Health, and Thunder Bay District Health Unit will move to yellow. So if you were in green, now you're in yellow. This is the framework used to tick you into lockdown as their fake cases and fake deaths, their fake stats tick up, because that's the plan. Doesn't matter what's happening. Ezra Levent says, for 5 full hours, Canada's official journalists were against this lockdown when they thought that they were considered non-essential. And then they lobbied for an exemption, and now they're happy with the lockdown again. It's for the little people, not the scolding class. Right? You're allowed. You're allowed. This is the Canadian Association of Journalists. The government of Manitoba has declared news non-essential during the pandemic. We're concerned and looking into this. As we've said many times this year, governments cannot use the pandemic as an excuse to restrict information and undermine democracy. No, when it affects us, outrage. Update, we've learned that this decision was an oversight and will be corrected. Yeah, now put your outrage pants on for the small businesses that you're watching being decimated, you hypocrites. Back to this. This is Manitoba right now. The provincial government has made it illegal for businesses to sell what they deem non-essential. Theresa Tam called these measures amazing today. There doesn't seem to be a government in Canada concerned with anything else but decimating every industry, the economy, and lives. Don't be fooled. This will happen in every province and territory soon. Enough is enough. If you hear of a rally, send it our way. We'd like to help spread the word. Yeah, there are people who are sick and tired of this. I'm one of them. This is coming. And they're trying to push us to order everything online. And there's a place for online sales. Sure. Internet should be part of commerce. I think that it should be. And I think we've figured out a good way to live side by side and not completely decimate all of the small businesses that have built up our towns and replace them completely with big box stores. And this is being championed by people. It's for your safety, citizen. You'd do it if you cared for other people. No, that you wouldn't. You wouldn't. The nanny state flourishes in Manitoba. Rip these things down. Rip them down and carry it up. And if they don't sell to you, leave the money on the counter and walk out. Unbelievable. Dollarama in Winnipeg. You tell me if any of these items look essential to you. Who gets to declare what's essential for you, right? If you've got a birthday party to go to, there's an essential toy sitting there waiting to be picked up, right? Like, come on. It's and alcohol and cannabis and tobacco. How many people does tobacco kill daily in Canada? And yet we've got to make sure that there's a ready supply because, it might upset some people. Yeah, the hypocrisy and the inconsistency is part of the reason that people don't take this seriously. And it's not, the numbers do not demand that it be taken seriously because we've got 8 months of history on this and you're lying and we know it. Here's enforcement. This is what this is all about. Enforcement, Alberta. This is a screen grab. I don't have the original link, so apologies, but I've got the link to the tweet, so I'll share that. But it says, if you violate a public health order, you may be subject to a $1,000 fine. If you're concerned someone is not following public health orders, you can snitch on them. And they give the ways that you can snitch. This is the country we live in now. Welcome to Canada. Do as you're told or else. We've got useful idiots everywhere. Completely overwhelming. Steinbeck ER at capacity treating COVID-19 patients, nurse says. Oh my goodness, it's happening. It's really happening. It's not happening. There was somebody out there. They said, so I've just read a CBC article saying a Manitoba hospital is overwhelmed and they're triaging in cars. Then there's a whistleblower taking a video of the same hospital. It's empty, trying to be able to post here so we can all ask questions. So the article says that they're triaging in cars and she comes up and pulls up to the parking lot and parks and there's nobody out there. She's like, it's empty. There's nobody here. And then she walks in the front door and somebody shuts off and says, you can't record here. It's very, it is a situation, again, where we are being asked to take these liars at their word. And why would we lie? Why would we do anything? It's for your safety. It's for your safety. I think they're lying. I think they're lying liars and they should be called out on it. Alberta, this is capacity issues again. While Alberta Health Services said it would begin expanding the number of COVID-19 ICU beds available as soon as hospitalization surged, one nurses union says as staff are stretched thin, the question may soon become, who will be staffing them? Right, but we've run hospitals above 100% for a long, long time. Hire the people that you need. Hire the people that you need. I put this here again to show that they're talking about lockdown, and this is the 50% increase and 22% intensive care, and the rebuttal to that. So I'm just reminding you that, 2018, we being Ontario hospitals ran 100% plus regularly, and we did not shut down society for that. So the agreement that this is the only way to save society is to shut down everything if the hospitals seem to get close to 100% is a lie, and not how we've done things traditionally. Now, I'm not saying that our hospitals were perfect back then. They certainly weren't, but they were not impacting the broader society in the way that they are right now, right? Like, you can't have health unit staff unilaterally demand unconstitutional or laws that go in violation of the basic charter rights. You have freedom of movement in Canada. You have freedom to live your life. That includes going shopping, right? You have freedom to run a business. I don't know if that's in the charter. You have freedom to live your life. You have freedom to pursue employment. Okay, here's Edmonton. After Edmonton City Council received a public spanking over the mask extension, which led to them scheduling a second public debate on the subject, they've canceled it. Instead, they're going straight to a vote this Friday. But you do have tomorrow to get a written submission into them. David will be forwarding his Costco human rights complaint for their consideration. What's the matter, Andrew Knack? Couldn't recruit enough maskers for your motion to look remotely credible. Democracy is dead, in case anyone hasn't already noticed. And spoiler alert, they just pushed through with the mask mandate in Edmonton anyway, so whatever. Here is Bill Tufts, and he says, Gestapo showed up at a man's house at midnight and fined him $3,000 over non-COVID-19 compliant poker game at his Kamloops home. I missed that one in the criminal code. Aren't we letting like gun criminals out on bail the next day? Medical Furor said only 4 people allowed at a time in a home. Doctors are not qualified to make non-democratic, non-legislated laws. Yes, like they're making de facto laws that are in place by decree, and like that's not how things are done here. I mean, it is currently, because what are you going to do, right? Like, I mean, I guess you fight it in court, but we all have to play this game because we've given over all of our power because of a scary virus from China that doesn't ever have a cure, except that it does. Hydroxychloroquine, right? Man arrested and fined $3,000 in a non-COVID-19 compliant card game. I just wanted to say they were not properly distanced from one another, police said, and were not wearing masks. Sanitation stations were not available either, police said. Oh my goodness, can you believe it? What about the children at the card game? Here's another dictator drunk on power. This is a city councilor, 3-term city councilor. Do you know anything about Dominion, Ms. Kang? Do you know anything? No? Yeah, I bet not. Anyway, she says a refresher on the health restrictions in effect. Socialize only with your immediate household. A grandparent babysitting is considered an essential service, not socializing. Immediate household, aka core bubble, the people who live with you, and co-parents. Going on a walk outdoors with one friend is allowed. Wear masks. Outside social gatherings with people outside your core bubble are not allowed at this time, including on restaurant patios. No faith gatherings at this time. Wedding, funerals, other ceremonies, max 10 people. I know that to maintain our mental health and socialization is crucial. Call a friend while you go for a walk. Get a group together to play board games online, play charades on a Zoom group, video chat, or watch the same Netflix shows from different homes. This is not socializing. Like, that's just not, it's not the same thing as going to a bar for trivia night. It's not the same thing as going over to a friend's house for dinner. It's not the same thing, and it's not a replacement. And these tiny dictators who are city councilors shouldn't be telling you how many people you're allowed to have at your home. Even the health people, the health officials, should be maybe making recommendations to city council, and then city council can bat it around, and then they can administer the law or whatever. Or maybe Queen's Park, and then the people who are at Queen's Park can be held accountable. But the way this is happening, how do you hold people accountable? I don't even think my public health person, I think she turned off her Twitter the first time that she instituted lockdowns or whatever, because people were like, my business will not survive a lockdown period, and I'm angry with you because you went along with it. And so these people just go and hide. They're not facing consequences. They're not facing any kind of, they're being paid their full salary, in fact, probably bonuses, and they don't face any consequences for their actions. Dr. Tam for recommending bracelets on everybody, not Dr. Tam for encouraging the Manitoba, the charter violations that are happening in Manitoba. Honestly, it is unbelievable. Alberta business owners need to do the same, resist tyranny, she says. And this is in response to Leah Aaron. And she says, this salon owner has had enough of Doug Ford's nonsense and will not be closing next week. More businesses need to follow their example and say no to this government overreach. Resist the tyranny. Ford failed Ontario. Ford really did fail Ontario. He's awful. So this is the Facebook post, and it's an image. It says, Ontario government, Ford Nation, I invite you to come over with inspection to our business, Salon Glamour, which is a few doors down from Mama Martino's Pizza or Pasta and Pizzeria restaurant, where you held one of your conferences. We will remain open next week, and it will be up to our customers to decide if they want to wear a mask in our establishment. Please feel free to come, hand out as many tickets as you want. You will have to use physical force to make us lock down. We have quietly complied for the last 8 months. Anxiety, depression, tears, sweat, dealing with incapable government, provincially and federally. We have been at your disposal from day one of what happens next. Do we get the crew, the CEWS, CRA, CEBA, and whatever other effing abbreviation you idiots can think of? I, for one, say it is enough. Resist the tyranny. People are done. I'm done with this. I'm done with playing games. I'm done with playing nice. I'm calling them communists because that's what they are. They're not trying to preserve our culture or our way of life. Cam Guthrie just canceled the Christmas tree lighting. It's outside. What a, honestly. And he's citing safety. I've got to be safe and blah, blah, blah. Bull. Absolute garbage. Our culture is worth more than that. And people can show up if they want to show up. The people under 35 are not being killed by this. People under 60 have a very high rate of surviving, and asymptomatic spread has been proven false. So this is just absolutely, we're past the point where we need leadership to stand up. We need people to demand the leadership acknowledge what is real and what is fake. And what is fake is a whole bunch of the stuff that our leaders are pretending is completely 100% real. It's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. Or they just ignore it. Pretend it doesn't exist at all. Here is Pierre Polyev, Paper Tiger Pierre. He says, imagine that COVID recession was twice as bad and lasted forever. That is what ending our energy sector would do. Economic hit from COVID, minus 5.2%. Economic hit from shutting down the energy sector, minus 10% permanent. Yeah, permanent until you reopen it again, and then you have this huge bonanza of selling oil again. We could sell the oil. We could turn it on again if we had sane government that wasn't actually actively trying to hurt Canada while it pursued policies that bankrupted us. But that is exactly what's happening. Here's somebody else that thinks exactly what I think. Here we go.
They're talking about things like they don't want us to own property anymore. We're not going to own anything. It will be provided for us. Well, who does own the property? Who's renting it out to us? Some sort of shadowy elite. This is a takeover by the technocrats. And I urge anyone who thinks that this is a kind of conspiracy theory to do a bit of background reading. The Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, combined with UN Agenda 2030, as it's now called, is a complete transformation of our societies around the world on lines I would call communist or fascist. I mean,
he said, frankly, what's the difference? At the end there, but he gets cut off, so I just cut it off before he says that. Yeah, yep, and they're calling it a conspiracy theory. Here's BBC jumping in on the conspiracy theory. It's not a great reset, despite the fact that Trudeau himself was sitting there talking about the great reset and the great opportunity that COVID-19 is affording us. They're bankrupting us on purpose. It's part of their plan. And Trudeau's in on it. A lot of the premiers are in on it. Yes. Sorry if you don't like that I'm saying that, but that's true. So it says the BBC now trying to gaslight us into believing the WEF, World Economic Fund, the Great Reset is a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory when it's being promoted and implemented in plain sight. Yes, implemented. It's not just like it might happen. It is currently happening. We are currently in the situation of being locked down. We are currently in the situation of a controlled demolition of our economy. It is currently happening, and we're being compliant with it because we're afraid. But if you look at the numbers, there's nothing to be afraid of. The only thing to fear is fear itself, right? Let's learn a bit of history, everyone. Okay, Brian Lilly says, I wrote about Justin Trudeau speaking of a reset and Agenda 2030 as expected. His supporters and others on the left claim I'm pushing conspiracy theories. Agenda 2030 is a UN program. The Great Reset is from the World Economic Forum. They are denying reality. I'm going to get my tabs loaded. Hold on. Here's the Sun article. Trudeau has eyes set on a great reset for Canada. Days before the throne speech, the government began to pull away from that and put forward a more modest plan focused fully on the pandemic. Seems the idea of using a global health crisis as an excuse to fundamentally alter society didn't sit well with the public. Well, that doesn't mean Trudeau was fully shying away from the idea when it came to speaking to a global audience. A video of the Prime Minister speaking to a United Nations meeting at the end of September has started to gain all the wrong kind of attention as people parse and share his words all over the internet. This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset, Trudeau said. This is our chance to accelerate our pre-pandemic efforts to reimagine economic systems that actually address global challenges like extreme poverty, inequality, and climate change. That one phrase from Trudeau, opportunity for a reset, is what really got tongues wagging and keyboards clicking. It's proof he's having Canada join the Great Reset. Of course, it doesn't help that Trudeau also invoked the name of a major United Nations program aimed at reshaping the economy through environmental means to embrace socialism. Building back better means getting support to the most vulnerable while maintaining our momentum to reaching the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, Trudeau said. And mayors have signed on to the sustainable development. Like, he's speaking all the right language to maintain the support of all of the people who have bought into the United Nations. But I'm going to give you a reason to think, one, the Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory, and two, that the United Nations is probably not the best because they're funding some voting systems that we've learned are potentially suspect. So are they funding the people? Are they putting in place the people who are voting for this garbage? Maybe. It's not much of a jump to think that they are in light of the current evidence, right? Here's Charlie Angus. Pierre Poilievre is acting like an irresponsible idiot. Canadians have enough to worry about in the COVID crisis without conservatives spreading conspiracy theory disinformation. Yeah, it's a conspiracy theory. Oh, here's the Bank of Canada that says the Great Reset. Here's a PDF from the bankofcanada.ca. This is the Great Reset. We're going to go through this. It starts off with COVID-19 is a shock and an opportunity. I mean, it's just so slimy, right? Because it never goes back to really talk about COVID-19. It's all green economy here. Pivot to a greener, smarter economy? That's the opportunity. Focus here on climate-related issues. Our contributions to scenario analysis. The scenario analysis is very interesting. And to start, how we view climate change risk. How we view climate change risk? COVID-19, shock, and opportunity. Let's get on to climate change. Two sets of risk for climate change: physical risk, transitional risk. Different roles in facilitating a transition, and it talks about whose roles do what. Scenario analysis, useful tools given uncertainty. It's not what will occur, but what could occur. This is very, very concerning, considering here it says, at 2 degrees Celsius, disorderly action begins. From who? Are you guys going to activate Antifa again? Near Paris target agreement. This is the global oil production. Right. Says who? No action. But global oil production is still projected to increase regardless of the Paris agreement, because every single climate target made by Canada has failed. Every single one. Scenario analysis as a journey, multi-year process. COVID-19 as a disruptor. Okay, so they talk a bit about COVID-19. Hold on. Yeah, basically it says opportunity to employ scenario analysis. And that's it. That's it. Like, kind of a cursory mention, and the rest is all climate change. Climate change, climate change, climate change. It is, the Great Reset is being ushered in through the opportunity COVID has provided them, and they are not missing the exploitation of this crisis. Conspiracy theories aside, the government and Bank of Canada clearly making claims of COVID-19 as being an opportunity to rearrange our economy is terrifying. This is Justin's hand-picked Bank of Canada Governor Tiff McCallum responding to a question about a green recovery and the UN Sustainable Development Goals on September 11th, 2020. Quote, "Don't waste a crisis." I'm not going to play this, but it's in the link. Oh, maybe I will. Hold on. I'll listen to it again and just see. Okay, I'll play the important part. He does this long drawn out, well, we got to look at this, we got to look at that, but then he sums it all up like this.
Financial system and the Canadian economy. So, yes, don't waste a crisis. But, the first and most important part is we've got to sustain this recovery. We've got to get Canadians.
I think sustaining the recovery would just be opening us up, admitting that you made a mistake in opening us up. But never waste a crisis, right? So it's the opportunity that they're looking to push, right? Key and Bex went undercover, and it turns out it's not just George Soros. Dominion Voting has operated in Toronto for years within a socialist incubation hive geared towards action-oriented social justice. America just used SJWs to arbitrate the presidential election. Very interesting clips here. This is the building, and you could go in, like you can tour buildings with Google Tour or whatever, and it's like the new thing. And Google was all in on that kind of stuff, right? So oftentimes trying to be cool gives evidence, and that's an interesting thing to have on your office, right? Evil genius. But anyway, Mr. and Miss Fred Feddersen say, we have the following in the same building: the Chinese Canadian National Council, Tides Canada, and Dominion Voting. And there's more as well. Like there's lots of other ties to this. It's very, very interesting. Dominion Voting just happens to be in the same office as Trudeau's lieutenant. Here's Kean Bex. He says, I didn't notice this. Alongside Dominion Voting, George Soros, and a plethora of other leftists, they're also holed up with a radical member of Justin Great Reset Trudeau's caucus, Adam Vaughan. So yeah, Adam Vaughan. Ooh, yikes! I wonder if he's benefited from any kind of voting system, Dominion voting system or otherwise. So Dominion, Smartmatic, they're kind of the same, and it says, well, I'll show you in a flowchart in a minute how they're kind of the same. Smartmatic was purchased by Dominion. It says, oh, it looks like the World Bank and the Gates Foundation funding Smartmatic looks like they overthrew Haiti as well. And that's Twitter speculation. I can't prove that, but this person believes that they've got some evidence in that direction, so that's interesting. Miami Herald warning on Smartmatic in 2006. Software engineers with links to the leftist anti-American regime of Hugo Chavez are in charge of programming electronic voting machines that will soon power U.S. elections. Wow, isn't that interesting? So Sequoia Capital purchased voting machines of AVM Corporation. Sequoia Capital becomes Sequoia Voting Machines. That becomes Smartmatic. Smartmatic becomes Dominion, sold in 2010. Dominion was founded in Toronto in 2002, but kind of was consolidated Smartmatic and Dominion were consolidated in 2010. Carlyle Group is the biggest shareholder of Dominion. So in 2018, Staple Street Capital, owned by Mark Rubenstein, who's also the founder of the Carlyle Group, the shareholder of the company behind Dominion. And the Carlyle Group was founded in 1987 as an investment banking boutique and has worldwide business relations with Chinese companies under Jian Zemin family control. So Dominion has ties to CCP, to a company controlled by CCP company. So that's CCP's Chinese Communist Party. Interesting, right? Those are some not very far jumps and leaps. Are those the people that you want counting the votes of the United States presidential election in Germany? Do you believe those results? If they come back and say, no, for sure, definitely, this one's right. I don't know, man. I don't know. Might have to have a whole new election. We'll do a whole new election January 10th from the United States. It'd be fun, right? Everybody just go out and vote. Guess who's listed as the major funder of Smartmatic voting machines? It's our good friend, the United Nations. I've always said the United Nations is the most dangerous entity on the face of the planet, and this, gives strong indication that that's not great. Primary funders, United Nations for Smartmatic, right? See at the top, Smartmatic, right? Interesting. The United Nations and the CCP creating voting machines, and Sidney Powell is alleging that offices were for sale and people were recruited to go into those offices. How far does this go? How deep does this go? Does it go all the way to municipal? Does it go to MP level? Right? Do we have people in Toronto who've been placed by Dominion Software with their knowledge or without their knowledge? Do they know about it? Could you not know about it? I don't know. Here's Donald Trump. Here's two signals. First we'll do Sidney Powell. Sidney Powell says, Georgia is probably going to be the first state I'm going to blow up, and Mr. Kemp and the Secretary of State need to go with it because they're in on the Dominion scam. It will be biblical. And if you've been paying attention, that's interesting. And Donald Trump says, why is Joe Biden so quickly forming a cabinet when my investigators have found hundreds of thousands of fraudulent votes, enough to flip at least 4 states, which in turn is more than enough to win the election? Hopefully the courts and or legislators will have the courage to do what has to be done to maintain the integrity of our elections. And the United States of America itself. The world is watching. If you've been paying attention, that's interesting, right? That's interesting. It's very, very interesting in the scope and in light of everything that's going on, Dominion, everything. And Sidney Powell as well. I was listening to the interview. I listened to the whole thing. I don't know if it's this one. It's one I was linking yesterday. She talks about how they're putting together their case and they're going to be submitting it hopefully before Wednesday, because this week's Thanksgiving in the United States, and then Black Friday is a business day, so she could potentially file on Friday. But they're trying to file all their lawsuits simultaneously. But she's dropping lots of other catchphrases that, if you've been paying attention, you would recognize readily. But I think that it's very interesting having Donald Trump say the world is watching, having Sidney Powell, Trump's legal team, saying it will be biblical. There's stuff that's going to happen. I don't think that this is over by a long shot. And everybody keeps telling me they've got to hurry up. They've got to hurry up. I think part of the show is letting people realize that they're really trying to steal this. This isn't like a joke. Like, it's not like, oh, ha ha ha, yeah, we got it wrong. Like, oh, I can't believe we miscounted like that. Shucks. Like, we're all going back home and we're all going to be buddies about it. And, next time we'll all come back and, right? No, like, I think Trump's serious, and I think he's actually going for it. Like, he's actually going to do it. And it'll be interesting. I don't know what's going to happen, but because it's a war, and you can't predict what's going to happen, right? Like, if you're fighting in a war, like I used to read World War II books, right? Because they're interesting. And they would have a plan, right? Like, okay, we're going to get the bridge by this point, and we're going to get control of the town by this point, and then we're going to, occupy and move into the next phase, and blah, blah, blah. They've got a plan. This is the same in this situation. And like, sometimes things move faster or slower, and you've got to hold because other people have got to catch up or whatever, and you've got to speed up and hurry things up. But it seems like Trump's got lots of time. Like, December, it was 37 days or something like that before Gore conceded. Trump's got lots and lots of time, and they're trying to push the public pressure on him, but the public doesn't believe Biden won. Like, he's still not popular. People aren't rallying around Biden. They're not like, yay, Joe Biden, right? So this is all, who knows how this is going to shake out. The Canadian media, the Canadian public, who are not aware of this, the Canadian politicians, they're all silent about the Dominion voting systems, despite the fact that it's all over our system, regardless of whether our federal election uses it. Our municipal election does. Our municipal elections use, at least 50 in Ontario use it, plus more, I'm sure. The Ontario election used Dominion. And the federal election, all the leadership is chosen through Dominion, and same with the PC. So is it a legit election if you get two puppet candidates? If you get candidates that were placed by somebody who controls whoever built the Dominion software, whoever controls the Dominion software, right? Do you trust all of these people? If not, why not? I think that there's a good reason to not trust them. I think that there's good reason to not trust the uncertified result that the AP has said is the result of the American election, right? And a lot of the reason is because of this software. And there's a lot of questions. So we're going to see what happens. It's a war. That's what I mean by when I say it's a war. I'm not saying anything other than sometimes things go right in wars and sometimes things go wrong. And sometimes you don't have the whole picture and you have to just hold. You just have to wait and hope that the team that you're meeting up with has done their job and they catch up, right? Or has done their job so that when you go to do your job, everything works. And everything should work, right? But it's a war. Who knows what's going to happen, right? Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful